𝘱𝘬𝘦𝘴𝘢𝑥, and I'm a junior at the University of Michigan studying creative writing and literature. As a 20-year-old, I don't know much about parenting. Excluding my fur babies, I don't have children of my own, let alone children in school. However, I don't have to know how to parent in order to understand the need for parental engagement in children's education. As a college student, I know almost nothing about how to raise a child. But as a tutor at Detroit Public Schools and a citizen of Earth, I know the kind of support children need to learn and grow. And a lot of it comes from outside the classroom. To illustrate what I mean, let's assume that a child's main source of learning is their teacher, and that most of their cognitive, social, and emotional growth happens within the classroom. Given the taxing curricula and high expectations that schools already place on students, it's not too unreasonable to think that school time is learning time and home is a break. I mean, how often do you think parents take on the main role of teaching their kids Algebra 2? Odious math requirements aside, let's consider the apple and tree metaphor I referenced in my title. You've probably heard the old cliche that the apple never falls far from the tree, or in other words, that children grow up to be at least somewhat like their parents. One can debate the wisdom of that phrase, but for now, let's imagine children as apples. This apple that I've sliced into 8 represents a child's total waking hours during the year. Of these slices, how many do you think children actually spend in school? If you said 2, you're right. Children spend about a quarter of their waking hours during the year in school. That's pretty astounding, right? As much time as that may seem, remember, our model says that children do the majority of their learning in school, and these 2 slices are all the time they have. That's it. Furthermore, not all of this time is spent in a desk listening to the teacher or doing schoolwork. There's the hall passing times, lunch, recess, all of which are important uses of the day that eat into the amount of time that children spend doing hard learning. So that quarter of waking hours that children spend in school starts to look a lot smaller. Is that really all the time students need to achieve the goals set for them? Let's veer away from abstractions and give this analogy some context. We expect a lot out of our students. For example, reading is one of the hardest skills a person can learn, yet we expect children to do it independently by 3rd grade. And we're constantly testing and monitoring their achievement from K to 12. In fact, a study in 2015 found that the typical US student takes 112 standardized tests before graduating high school. That's roughly 10 a year. And when schools rely on high test scores for government funding, they do everything in their power to keep those to teach the test material. Some students thrive in that challenging environment and can keep up, but the National Assessment of Educational Progress found that only about 1/3 of all US students are performing at or above grade level in reading and math. The bar we set for children keeps getting higher, yet many aren't able to reach it. So what do the people in power do to get kids to that level? School administrators might revise the curriculum to have a heavier focus on core subjects like reading and math that show up on tests, while reducing or even eliminating other areas like the arts. Legislators, who often have never led a classroom, may write laws outlining new benchmarks for kids, even if they don't include provisions for reaching those goals. As an educator in Michigan, a particularly salient example of this is the recent 3rd grade reading law, which mandates that students must read proficiently by the end of 3rd grade or risk retention. Thousands of students could be held back every year, yet the state has so far failed to provide adequate resources to help them. No matter what the approach, all that extra material and workload ends up crammed into 7 hours of a day, 180 days a year. They juice these 2 slices for all they're worth, and then wonder why they're still hungry, neglecting the other 6 slices of the apple. 1/4 of anything is a significant amount, but there's still lots more left to be dealt with. Educators for too long have pushed aside the untapped potential of home learning. It's not that they don't want to take advantage of it. Teachers are busy, and they're the professionals at teaching anyway. It's just that for a long time, families and schools haven't been connecting effectively in order to foster the relationships and transfer the necessary information to teach parents how to teach. 𝘱𝘳𝘦𝘴𝘦𝘠𝘕, founder of Springboard Collective, a program that equips parents with the skills they need to accelerate their child's learning, put it best when he said, "Parents are the experts on their children. Whereas teachers change annually, parents accumulate a wealth of knowledge about their children as learners." Later on, he followed that up with, "Teachers, on the other hand, are the experts on instruction. They know what their students need to make progress, yet the classroom setting makes it difficult to individually support every child." Parents and teachers, then, have skill sets that best support children when combined. Teachers provide instruction to a large group of students, and parents nurture and guide their children on an individual level. Ideally, schools and families would work to combine their strengths to extend education into the home and make use of the rest of the apple. But how do we implement that feasibly? Metaphors are one thing, but what does effective parental engagement look like? Well, it's a little different when the school year looks less like this and more like this. School closures and online learning have made education, well, not. But one positive side, other than protecting millions of children from contracting the virus, of course, to this has been the marked increase in parental engagement in their children's studies. Parents 2020, a survey conducted by Edge Research about parental opinions on schooling during the pandemic, found that parental engagement had increased across all racial and ethnic groups, with Hispanic and Black parents being the most likely to report feeling optimistic about the situation. What's more, roughly 2/3 of parents believe that they will continue to consult with their children's teachers and learn about what's expected of them at each grade level, even into the next school year. That's huge. Let me add a disclaimer here. Distance learning is not easy, and it's even harder for some. To learn online, one needs access to a computer and high-speed, reliable internet, which about 12 million students nationwide still don't have. Plus, with younger children, a caregiver needs to be home all the time, which doesn't mesh well with essential workers who have to go to their job. Then there's the fact that some kids might not have all of their needs, such as food, fulfilled at home. These factors and more complicate distance learning, and rarely do parents find it preferable to traditional learning. Still, when the line is blurred between home and school, as it is with the pandemic, teachers have to collaborate in ways that seemed inessential before. Teachers have to communicate homework and progress to parents, and parents have to monitor their children and help with completing work. According to the Parents 2020 survey, parents in the spring spent about 2.5 hours a day helping their children with schoolwork. That's basically another slice right there. Parent engagement might look a little different when schools reopen and more adults go back to work. But families and educators can each take steps to maintain the momentum gained this year. For parents, a meta-analysis of 10 million students shows that just 15 minutes of one-on-one time a night is sufficient to improve reading nearly twice as fast as school alone would. 15 minutes. 2 apple slices of an hour. Even the busiest parents can find that time to spare. For school staff, teachers need to make sure that parents have the skills and resources they need to guide their children effectively. As a tutor to young students, I know better than most that teaching a child to read is more than just pointing out words on a page. Teachers also have to find and utilize the communication methods that parents find the most accessible. The best written email in the world is useless if the recipient can't check their inbox. School psychologists and social workers have a role to play as well. I mentioned earlier that distance learning comes with several complications, And psychologists and social workers are in the best position to reach out to families in need and make sure that they have what they need to do online learning. Luckily, many organizations, such as private internet providers and the FDA, have been working to provide emergency services to families in need. Detroit Public Schools, where I have been privileged to work for the last 2 years, is exemplary for their response to the pandemic. Together with several local philanthropic organizations, they raised $23 million to provide all 51,000 students in their district with computers and internet access at no charge to the families. Will engaging parents in children's education take effort? Yes. Time, money, resources, absolutely, all of the above. But since when is anything worth attaining not? Are we going to prioritize capital, or are we going to put our youth first? The apple may not fall far from the tree, but by strengthening the tree's roots and empowering it to nurture, we can ensure that the apple turns out to be the best it can be.